Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the What If Project vlog. My name is Glenn. I'm the host, and I got my coffee once again. Today, I've got a David Hayward mug. David Hayward, the Naked Pastor, is a friend of mine. He's been on the show. This cartoon is the most sincere prayer. And the guy is like kneeling in his bed and he says, "Dear God, like WTF." Have you ever had a prayer like that? Have you ever wanted to pray to God and say, "God, what is going on? What is happening in my life?" I've been there. Maybe you've been there as well. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for dropping by the show. I wanted to reflect for a moment on last Wednesday's podcast. I did a midweek release, a special episode with my friend Nate Postlethwait, who his specialty is inner child work. And obviously not an expert in any of this. This is all new territory for me. So I'm going to give you a very simple explanation that's most likely wrong. Most likely botched up, not as good as it could be. But really quick, inner child work. There's an inner child that lives in you, inner child that lives in me. At some point in our lives, as children, young adults, whatever, we went through trauma, right? Whether it's religious trauma, it's trauma at home, trauma at school, trauma with our friends, some kind of traumatic experience at church, whatever. We've all had some kind of traumatic experience, whether it's abuse, it could be physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, spiritual abuse, whatever it is. We've all gone through and experienced some kind of trauma. As we grow up, we become adults. We come across circumstances, we come across events in our lives that remind our inner selves or inner child of that traumatic experience. And as a result, we begin to respond in specific ways that we were groomed to respond when we were younger. And then we respond today as adults in ways that really don't make much sense for our current lives and our current situations, but it's because our inner child is remembering this event of today, is triggering the memory of the past, and we're responding in the same kind of way. So I had Nate on the show, and Nate talked to me a little bit about my own story. So funny thing is I wanted to invite him on originally to have him tell his story because his story is really interesting. If you go to his website, I think it's natewrites.com, and you go to his about section, there's a point there where he talks about what his story is. There's a link to it, takes you to his blog post. You can read all about it. But he's been on other podcasts before and he's told his story. It's a super good story, very emotional story, a very relatable story for many different kinds of people. And I thought it would be really cool to bring him on and have him tell the story to the What If Project listeners. Then I thought to myself, you know what? Like his story is out there. You can just go listen to any podcast, listen to a story. Let's do something really different. And so I asked him ahead of time, I said, would you mind if I brought you on the show and I talked to you about my story, very specifically what I think is religious trauma, and I'll tell you my story and then you can just respond to it and we'll just kind of see where it goes. He said, yeah, I think that would be fantastic. So I brought him on the show. I talked to him about my story. And there's one specific thing that he said to me that I wanted to share with you today because I can't get out of my head. And it has to do with demons, the demonic realm. And this came up in the conversation because all my life, I told Nate that I've struggled with self-doubt. There's a voice in my head that says, you're not good enough. You'll never amount to anything. You're stupid. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. All these different things. All my life, ever since I can remember, this has been my struggle. And I said, when I got into college and seminary, I was told that this voice is a demon. It's a demon that needs to be cast out. And so I've gone through 5, 10, 15 literal rounds of prayer, exorcisms, whatever you want to call it, putting oil on my head, all the different things to cast this demon out of my life. And truthfully, for a while, every single time I get prayed for, it'd be better. Week, month, sometimes I think the longest like almost a year. It was immensely better. But then slowly but surely, the voice would begin to creep back. Sometimes as a whisper, sometimes as a loud scream. You're stupid. You're terrible. You're never going to amount to anything. Nobody cares what you have to say. All these different things. And whenever this voice would come back, I told Nate, I'd feel like it was because I did something wrong. right? I didn't go to church enough. I didn't read my Bible enough. I wasn't praying enough. I wasn't fasting enough, whatever it is. I wasn't doing enough of the spiritual disciplines that I need. And therefore I opened up a door for this demon to come back, right? Like the passage in, I think it's in Matthew or Mark or one of those gospels where Jesus says the demon goes away, brings back 10 more with it, whatever, finds the house swept up and clean, and boom, they're going to wreak havoc in there, right? You did something. I did something to allow this demon to come back, and therefore it's my fault. Now I feel more shame. I feel stupider. I feel more doubt, more condemnation. It's like a never-ending cycle. And so I said to Nate, what do you think about that? And so we talked about it a little bit. Then I asked him a question. I said, Nate, how often do you think in the church that the voice of the inner child, is mistaken for a demon? Oh, I skipped something. I skipped another part of my story. So I told Nate the whole story about the demons. Sorry, I don't have any notes in front of me. Forgive me. Okay. I told Nate about the story of the demons. And I told him that there was a friend of mine who's a therapist, a spiritual director. He said, maybe that voice is not a demon. Maybe it's your inner child. Maybe every time the inner child says to you, you're stupid, you have nothing to offer the world, whatever, all this doubt, this condemnation, maybe it's not the demon condemning you or accusing you. Maybe it's your inner child asking for help. And maybe instead of telling the demon to shut up and go away, you need to invite the inner child onto your knee and look at him in the eyes and tell him the same thing that you would tell your 4-year-old daughter if she came home from school or from a friend's house and said that her teacher, her friend, whatever, said that she was bad, stupid, and nothing to offer the world. What would you say to your daughter? Say that to your younger self. Mind-blowing to me, right? So I told Nate this. We went back and forth a little bit. And then I said to him, I said this, how often do you think that the church mistakens the voice of the inner child for the voice of a demon? And his response really shook me, because he said, I think that's giving the church too much credit. Because in reality, and this isn't a word for what he said, but more or less is what he said, there are no demons. And that shook me, honestly, because on my shelf back there, I've got, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 books, all about demons, the demonic realm, the kingdom of darkness. Guys, I went to Bible college. I went to seminary. I took classes, literal semester-long classes, where all we talked about was the spiritual world, the kingdom of light, the kingdom of darkness. We learned how to pray, cast out demons. We learned all of that stuff. I've got all the books. This is a huge part of my life for a long time. So Nate says there are no demons. And I thought to myself, I have so many questions now. I have so many questions. It wasn't the time to ask them. I have so many questions. And then he said, this is what he said that I can't get out of my head. He said, isn't it an atrocity that in 2021, a couple months shy of 2022, we're looking at people who have real emotional wounds as the result of traumatic experiences. And instead of helping those people really walk through those things and experience the healing they need to help their inner child deal with the stuff they need to deal with, we're labeling it as a demon. We're telling it to shut up. We're casting it out. He said, we live in 2022, and this is what we do. I thought to myself, even though I have all these questions, because I do, I got all those books, a big part of my life, I got a lot of questions. There's another thing I got to think about, deconstruct, reconstruct, all the things. He's right. I tried to picture this little version of myself who growing up was told by the church, by his father, you're no good, you're bad, you're born bad, you're a sinner, all this different stuff. Filled with self-condemnation, self-doubt, self-hatred, filled with all this anxiety about himself and his place in the world. And here I am as a 25-year-old, 30-year-old, 35-year-old man. I opened up the door and I invited trusted voices in. And those voices told him, you're a demon and you need to go. How traumatic. I've allowed this inner child to be re-traumatized so many times in these sessions of prayer. And I felt like the Spirit said to me in that moment that the times when you felt like the voice went away is because it did go away. Because the praying and the yelling at it and the telling it to go shamed him and pushed him into a corner, pushed him onto the ground, put him underneath a boot and said, "Shut up." He did. But as he found his courage again, he came back out. And his cries, like my friend said, are not accusations, but they're cries for help. I felt like the Spirit said, now is the time to help him. So that's the leg of the journey that I'm on these days, my friends. Well, there's an inner child in me. And I want to tell you today that there's an inner child in you. That's kind of my whole point in talking about this, is we have a younger version of ourselves living inside of us right here, right now. That younger version of ourselves has been traumatized. Sometimes countless instances of trauma that some of us have gone through. And when you come across a situation today that triggers that inner child to remember that traumatic experience when you were younger, you respond the way that you do today. That doesn't really make sense to the people around you for the context of your current life. That's because there's an inner child inside who's not trying to disrupt you, who's not trying to wreak havoc in your life. He's not a demon who's trying to take you down. He's an inner child who's asking for help. And the only one that can help that child is you. The only one that can help my child is me. And so like my friend challenged me, I would challenge you, when you feel inside like you are responding to something, you're about to just go off the handle. Maybe it's anger, it's sadness, it's anxiety, whatever it is. You just feel like your mind is about to just explode because of this circumstance that you're in. Pause. Nate says, pause, take a deep breath, and speak to that inner child. Picture the smaller version of you. Put them on your knee, embrace them in your arms, in your mind's eye, and talk to them. Tell them the truth. Tell them what they needed to hear all the way back then that maybe nobody told them. Tell them today. You tell them today. You tell them today what they need to hear. It's not an instant fix. It's not going to happen overnight, but there will be, over the course of time, doing this more and more and more, maybe having a therapist do it with you, having a journal where you journal through this stuff. You're going to not help that child grow up, because Nate says if we don't help the child to grow up, we're not helping the child mature into a man or woman or whatever. We're helping that child inside deal with the trauma, because what that child did in the past was just stuff the trauma away and move on with life. You're helping that child take the trauma out from under the rug, take it out from the closet, put it across on the floor, and let's deal with it so that you can heal from this. That's your role. That's your role as an adult. That's your role with the younger version of yourself. That's all I've got to say, my friends. I don't know if that was helpful. I don't know. I felt like I was rambling at times, but I felt like this was something I really wanted to talk to you about, because it's something that's really dancing around in my head these days. And I have a lot of thinking to do about this demonic stuff, because like I said, the whole I think it's the bottom shelf down there, or maybe it's over there. I don't know. It's one of those shelves. It's like all books about this stuff. And I can't get that line out of my mind from Nate, is that isn't an atrocity or whatever word he used, that this is what we're labeling people's trauma as demons. How much added trauma are we giving to people because we're trying to cast this thing out of them that is part of who they are? They don't need casting out, they need healing from it. Isn't that what Jesus did? Jesus healed people. And I know that there were stories of demons and all about all those different things. I know. But Jesus healed. And perhaps labeling things as demonic isn't always the best way to bring about healing. I don't know. Stay tuned for more thoughts on that. I'm gonna have to find some people to bring on the show to talk to me and help me understand this stuff. So if you know of anybody, leave them in the comments, tag them. shoot me an email, do the things. But until next time, my friends, much love to you. Thanks for dropping by. Catch you later. Peace.